Putin is revealed to have warned the U.S. of his intention to use nuclear-like weapons to reactivate his nuclear blackmail. How is Washington reacting to this, and what will be the consequences now for Bunkerney? Because it is clear that the Western world, despite everything, not Margarita Simonyan, will not back down. We continue to talk about Putin's emergency address. This is a live YouTube broadcast of Channel 24. I, Iryna Uzlova, and with me is Yuriy Rashkin, a public and political figure from the United States, a deputy from Wisconsin County. Yuriy, hello? Putin came out, no one asked, but 2-week search, they say, all canned, and he says, well, the war has gone global. It's all because of your attacks. Here you allowed us to hit. And Putin is already saying that just war is war. Well, as war, he says, conflict is conflict. That's what he calls the war he's been waging against us for 11 years. If you continue, Yuriy, you who give ATACMS, continue in the same vein, Putin will respond decisively and mirroring. Yuriy, please tell me, are you already afraid of this response, and are you preparing to hide somewhere? It sounds like the Biden administration has been able to find Putin's fear and figure out where that line is that makes him more furious. But he is pissed off. And his statement seemed to me to be the statement of a man who doesn't feel weak. On the contrary, he clearly said what he wants, and he has every chance to expect a good future. He has a good relationship with the next president of the United States. So it seems to me that from Putin's point of view, the situation looks like America is off the leash. In terms of the White House statements, it's all Putin, because Putin bought himself these North Korean soldiers and thus escalated the escalation level to an international level. It's now an international war. From this administration's point of view, this is the red line after which they gave Ukraine permission to bash ATACMS. And now we can say that there is a definite attempt to find good positions for future negotiations, because everybody understands that Donald Trump is coming to power, who has said that he wants to end this war very quickly. Accordingly, it's expected that there will be some, at least, attempts at negotiations. So it could be a battle for a better position at the negotiating table, and we are already seeing these events begin. Yuriy, we will talk about this later, including positions at the negotiating table. Right now, let's discuss the other positions that the Russian occupiers were trying to show. I don't know what exactly Putin has left, but it is probably not by chance that he called the missile system Oreshnik. Whoever has what ails him speaks his mind. But Peskov, I'm sorry, looked like a flawed man at the table, threatening, but to whom? Who is he trying to fight? To make matters worse, Peskov, Putin's spokesman, said that 30 minutes before the launch of the Nuttle missile, Russia notified the U.S. through the Nuclear Threat Reduction Center. Reuters and CNN sources report that Russia has warned the U.S. about the Peanuts launch, citing an unnamed U.S. official. The U.S. Embassy in Kiev suspended operations yesterday, followed by the embassies of Greece, Spain, and Italy. The states also warned of possible terrorist attacks, nuclear tests, and a Putin attack. And why does Peskov still say, why did Putin warn the United States? If you want to scare, if you want to show that you have something, why do you warn? What lines of agreement is this supposed to operate on? Well, to be more sure that your idea is bought, that's why you go by all the rules. You warn everybody how and what. It's the end of the world. That's how it's supposed to be. It's protocol. So it gives you, more. If you want to set up that kind of bluff, ponce, intimidate, I had company. When it comes to financial services, everything is going well. When it comes to signing signatures, people say, wait, I have questions. So the fact that Putin is now making these statements at the last moment, seemingly already in the Biden administration, it leads to escalation at a very high level, much faster. Although, nevertheless, the West continues to say that this is irresponsible rhetoric by Putin, we don't believe. We don't believe that this could lead to a nuclear threat, because here is Putin will not do such a thing. Because if he does, then he will get swift consequences. Why did Biden decide to lift the ban? Because no consequences are expected before Trump. Putin's statement is a bluff, according to most Western spokespeople. However, if you look at pro-Trump channels like Fox or news resources like Drudge Report, they emphasize the threat of nuclear catastrophe and the beginning of World War III, especially in the context of the situation in Ukraine and intercontinental missiles. The country is buzzing over the fact that the man Trump nominated for Attorney General, against whom serious allegations have arisen, has withdrawn his nomination. What many don't realize, however, is that he could be nominated to be a senator from Florida to replace Marco Rubio, who could possibly become Secretary of State. At the same time, the country is booming. And in this way, we can also be distracted from this, because look, it's a possible nuclear disaster. But the weapon that was used is a weapon that should go, as we have all said, much farther. It is an intercontinental weapon. So this is a signal, and perhaps it is a signal about Bryansk. It is possible that who here can already say exactly where the next strike will be. But at least it seems to me that there is a consensus in the West so far, an understanding that the nuclear threat is only those who are kind of afraid of the nuclear threat, continue to be afraid of the nuclear threat, and those who were not afraid, who were looking for evidence of the nuclear threat, continue to look for evidence of the nuclear threat. Yuri, let's go in order. Let's itemize everything. We have your answers. The news is pouring in. Just a reminder, we are live on YouTube channel 24, so ask questions, give it a like if you're watching. It will help the video promote. The United States has notified Ukraine and allies in advance of an impending Russian ballistic missile launch, according to White House Speaker Karine Jean-Pierre. She says none of this is going to intimidate anyone at all. Washington will continue to allocate new weapons packages to Kiev and work to expedite their delivery. That is not the case, but still, Dr. Fabian Hoffman of the Vostla Nuclear Project on CNN expressed the following opinion that the strike on the Dnieper River was a nuclear warning, regardless of the range of the missile. Putin has said that if the situation does not change, he will deploy shorter and medium-range installations, possibly with nuclear weapons. That's a warning. But how will it work on Trump, who could conceivably send such threats himself? Things are ambiguous in Trump's entourage, to say the least, and it's hard to know how Putin takes such signals. I have good news and bad news. The good, we have excellent intelligence that had advance warning of a possible strike, Embassies closed and people prepared. The professionalism is top-notch, and it would be a shame if they were fired under the next administration. Well, that's going to be the next question, so to speak. Who's going to go out the windows there? We'll see pretty quickly, I guess. Here's the bad news. I think this is how this could affect the next American president. Again, he's talking about the threat of World War III. He's talking about the threat of a nuclear Russia, how dangerous that is, how Putin needs to be negotiated with. So the timing is going to play a very real role here. You can't expect the pressure on Putin to increase after January 20th. At least Putin doesn't expect it. And maybe that's why he's so angry, because he sees that the pressure is building now, and he has 2 more months to go before the next administration. In the meantime, Biden turns out to have crossed Putin's red lines. Who thought? Who knew? And there's more than one Biden. And also, apparently the United Kingdom is clearly involved. There just seems to be their fingerprints all over this. This is the kind of war perhaps called Yuriy Rashkin called it World War III. But if we now find ourselves in a conflict that puts us on different sides at the last moment before Donald Trump comes to power, puts us on opposite sides of the conflict between us and Russia and China, sort of Russia and China on one side, let's say Europe and the United States, and Ukraine on the other side, then it could again be a very different end of the world than what we might have had a right to expect. It seems to me that Putin is hoping for Trump's inclination to stop the war, because Trump said there would be no wars when he learned of his election victory. If Putin is hoping for Trump, he is counting on him to support Ukraine not joining NATO, given Trump's ambivalent attitude toward the alliance and his view that Europe should look out for itself. Putin is likely to bide his time until the 20th, continuing to show threats and testing. However, even 2 months may not avoid further escalation, as the levels to nuclear war have already been passed. Iryna, visiting God, there's no such thing as being late when there's going to be nuclear war. That's, already here, yes, but clearly the new administration is not happy with the proactive behavior of this administration. When I'm asked about Donald Trump Jr.'s statement, as opposed to the older one, I think we're just seeing certain sort of unofficial statements here. The administration, unofficially, we've already seen shadow diplomacy in the first Trump administration. So there all the time when it was Giuliani who was in Ukraine and conducting shadow diplomacy of the United States. So there are always other people behind Donald Trump who are conducting his interests. So the statement here that you have to be complete in general to start World War III, it really shows that this is the kind of brinkmanship situation that we're standing on. In a sense, that's what separates us from what's being driven by the next administration, which will have very different priorities for the United States, including, under Project 2025, they should fire all State Department employees on day 1, because they're all so well politicized. Time is short, but it doesn't take much for a nuclear war. Escalation could show the untenability of Putin's statements. There are different scenarios, but 2 months is enough time to start a war. Perhaps Dr. Fauci will still be explaining how to deal with radioactivity. So it's already, American black humor, but there's still enough for that. But what happens after 2 months? Let's hope that there will be a negotiating table where someone can sit down and talk about something, and that Ukraine will be in the most favorable position at this negotiating table. And maybe we can still get more before that, because Yegor Chernev, MP of Ukraine and representative of the permanent delegation of the Parliamentary Assembly, yes, let the Biden administration, for example, may not have time to take that step. Here is the Trump administration, quite or still. Abandon hope. Anyone coming in here in this kind of R after arena? An interesting point, because none other than Putin just said in his statement that there is no question that such weapons can only be used with the help of the enemy, or whatever he called the United States. Well, let's say the manufacturer. So, just to say Ukraine, Putin doesn't believe that. He believes that the United States has still been very helpful. And so if that's true, then you don't have to just hand over the Tomahawks to Ukraine. I think you can just say, well, somehow give the command. I don't know enough about military science to understand if Tomahawks are something that precedes a nuclear war or goes along with a nuclear war. But yes, these are different levels of escalation. And if the Kremlin ends up on fire, that would also be, well, that would still be a development. It's hard to guess how this will end, but at least there is one possibility that Putin will just tolerate it for 2 more months, and then the situation could turn out very well for him. But will he be able to tolerate another 2 months while the Biden administration and the UK, maybe even France, admits that they are beating him? And what will happen after that? Well, for that, apparently, we just need to subscribe, click likes, hope we live to see it. Definitely, yes, friends. Please give a like to our conversation. We are live on YouTube. We are live on the 24th, and 4,000 people are working together with us. Thank you for watching, for your activity, of course, and please give us a like, because it is your simple, very necessary gesture that helps this conversation to move forward on YouTube. So please like, comment questions if you have any, and subscribe to Yuriy Rashkin's YouTube, Rashkin Report, in the description below this video. And YouTube 24 is also always with you. Thank you. I see you're already putting likes. Yuri, but that's not where Putin stops with his threats to the United States. Here, for example, in the guise, if I may say so, seeing what we see on her, as my regular guest, Roman Sviton, jokes, such a contraceptive more face. I'm talking now about Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman, Maria Zakharova. Zakharova said Russia could strike a NATO base in Poland, accusing the U.S. of deploying force outside its territory, and specified that the strike would be carried out with the latest weapons, such as the Oreshnik. What kind of response, then, would the same administration, even Donald Trump's, be prepared to make? I think he's certainly not going to like it. There are all sorts of reactions, both from the current administration and the next administration. We know that the wife of the future president of the United States was shown on Russian television in the nude, and he didn't know about it and didn't see it. If it didn't happen, that's fine, and he's victorious. So he can say that this base never existed, or that it was Biden's stupid idea to put it there, or that it doesn't mean anything and won't lead to an attack on the dear man with whom he has such a good relationship, which is Vladimir Putin. So you can imagine different scenarios, including if Putin decides to hit the base because he seems to be going crazy in his bunker. Then Poland will definitely claim that this is a violation, and the fifth point will be activated, and war will start. But there may be questions as to whether everything is so clear-cut. I think the country will definitely declare an attack. We are in a trajectory where events are unfolding and new actors are needed to interpret them. Donald Trump will interpret it differently. But how does Joe Biden see it? This is an escalation that is escalating. Our investment banker and author, Sergei Fursa, says that by aiming an intercontinental missile at the Dnieper River, Putin was aiming at the heads of people in the West, including Musk and his company, who are, in Fursa's words, in diapers and fanatical about Putin. We have to live with that. The mass of Putin supporters and people sensitive to Russian propaganda who are now closer to power than they were. They keep scaring everyone with nuclear war. Musk can use this video even if it's blank. Yes, Putin has found himself in an environment connected to Trump. Musk, Putin, and Trump have divided the planet. Each has his own interests. The political campaign is over, and we are back to running the state. Musk is sure to speak out about this, perhaps in terms of his own interests. This is important to those who support Trump and Musk, because thinking about a possible nuclear disaster is relevant.
Но на данный момент политическая избирательная кампания закончилась. И теперь мы вернулись в то, что называется как бы управлением государством в его заключительные дни.
Ironically, Peter Thiel, the chief financier of J.D. Vance, the future vice president and possibly president if something happens to Trump, is very interested in apocalyptic ideas. He believes that the world is a line moving from one point to another and that there will be a beginning and an end.
Но катастрофичной ситуации это, конечно, то, что важно для тех, кто поддерживает Дональда Трампа и политически, и Илона Маска, потому что это размышление о страхе перед ядерной катастрофой. Ирония судьбы в том, что именно главный человек, который финансирует как бы Джей Ди Венса, будущего вице-президента, и, возможно, президента, если что-то произойдет с 47-м президентом Дональдом Трампом, то как раз этот человек, Питер Тиль, очень заинтересован в идеях апокалипсиса.
So the irony for those who support Trump and fear nuclear catastrophe is that they may think Trump will make a deal, and Vance is followed by the next generations who may be far less concerned about the nuclear threat.
И думает, что Трамп может договориться, что за Венсом как раз идут следующие поколения, которые могут, возможно, намного меньше озабочены ядерной угрозой. Поэтому, в каком-то смысле мир такой
The world order that began after the end of the Cold War may already be coming to an end. We're watching to see which missile gets where. And yes, Elon Musk has a huge impact on creating an atmosphere of disinformation where people are willing to believe anything. That's part of what Putin cares about.
Поэтому мы следим за какая ракета куда долетит. И да, Илон Маск имеет невероятное влияние на людей в создании общей атмосферы дезинформации.
But even Putin can't seem to deny that the US, UK, and possibly France are firing missiles at him.
Да, это часть того, что так важно Путину. Но на данный момент, видимо, даже Путин не может отрицать того, что по нему лупят ракетами США и Великобритании, и, возможно, Франции.
Good sir, our viewer, of which there are almost 5,000, he's a Ponzi scheme. It's about Putin. We're having a pretty good discussion, Yuri. We've got 5 more minutes. I wanted to ask about the scandal surrounding the nominee for Attorney General, Mehta Getz, who withdrew his nomination after allegations of sexual relations with a minor. Why does this have to be a scandal amidst the story of Trump and his entourage? What's going on here?
Почему на фоне истории Трампа и его окружения это должно быть скандалом вдруг? Что здесь происходит?
You know, I think in some ways the very fact that the Gates issue overshadowed Trump was kind of a negative because you can't shine brighter than the light. And he clearly just lit everybody up like oil on a fire, this candidacy of his. And details started leaking out instead of this ethics report just being published.
Просто зажег всех как масло на огонь, говорит, его кандидатура, и стали утекать детали. Вместо того, чтобы этот репорт по этике просто...
They voted not to publish it, and then bits and pieces of details started to emerge. It turned out that there were some witnesses who testified that they didn't know about before. There were other girls or a girl, minors. And it all somehow just this kind of endless stream led to Matt Gaetz announcing that he was withdrawing his candidacy. It's really just a great victory for civil society in the United States. Because the level of terror that Matt Gaetz would have inflicted when he met with senators, he said, "Why are you so afraid?"
Встречался с сенаторами, он говорил, да что вы так боитесь, не то чтобы я взял и обвинил сразу эту Лиз Чейни или там ворвался со своим...
It's not like I just accused Elise or stormed into the newsroom of liberal MSNBC the first week. And they say to him, what if it wasn't the first week? What if it was the second week? So he's just blown through on all counts because he's not yet acceptable to the remnants of the American independent establishment, which realizes it's going to be eaten first. But now, this man may just be appointed to a senatorial position in Florida, or at least he'll fight for it. And if not, he's been reelected to Congress, so he can continue in the next Congress in the House of Representatives. There will be nothing surprising about it. Yuri, thank you so much. I'll see you on Saturday. Yuriy Rashkin will be with me.
Вы тоже. Спасибо, Ирина.
Спасибо вам. Юрий Рашкин, общественный и политический деятель из Соединенных Штатов Америки, а также депутат окружного собрания округа Рок, штат Висконсин. Была с ним я, Ирина Узлова, друзья, и надолго мы не прощаемся. Наши прямые разговоры на YouTube 24-го сейчас продолжатся. Мы обсудим, чем же грозит или угрожает Путин. Берегите себя, верьте в вооруженные силы Украины. Увидимся и победим.